Today we are with Mario Russo, RC Collectibles. Good morning, Mario.
Good morning, Wilson.
Good morning. How are you today, Mario?
What's that? I'm sorry.
How are you today?
I'm doing very well today. Thank you. How are you? How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing very well. Doing very well too.
Awesome.
Just to kick things off, Mario, can you tell us the story of what piece got you started in collecting memorabilia, and how did that piece get your interest in specific?
Well, I remember, as a child. I mean, I'm talking maybe 6, 7 years old, being at a buddy's house after Cub Scouts, and his older brother had some baseball cards, and at the time they were 1969s, 1970s, and we're talking like 1972. And I thought, oh my gosh, how old are these? And these are really cool. And there's John Matlack and all these guys, the Mets that I liked. And then I also remember walking with my grandmother as a child to the grocery store. And she would get me a pack of Wacky Packs, and they were the original 72, 73s. And it's funny about those is I remember a smell to them. They had a certain smell to the paper. And now if you get them today, there's so many years removed. The smell is not there. But if I mention it to people who collect Wacky Packs, they remember the certain smell that they had. And I don't know if it was from the gum or something, maybe, but they had a certain smell to them. And those two things got me going. And then my mom and dad were really involved in the little league. And my dad was on the second. My mom ran the snack shack. She was a women's auxiliary. And I would help my mom clean the snack shack, and she would give me a pack of baseball cards, and and I collected cards, and then all the guys in the neighborhood used to flip cards and things like that. So that's what really got me going into collecting, And also my dad was a tool and die engineer, and he manufactured the dies for matchboxes. Oh. So as a little kid, I had all of these Matchbox cars with no paint and no wheels. Because he did molds and they would pour the metal in them, but that's what got me collecting Matchboxes as well.
Wow, that's a very interesting start to it.
Yes.
How old were you when you got yourself started into this one?
I want to say it was in business itself, or in my personal collection.
Just starting the collection when you first got your pack.
I have to say, Wilson, I was probably 6 years old, maybe 7. When I first started collecting.
And is there a specific team that you want to collect, or a specific player?
Yeah, I think that's what it was all about back then, was the Giants, the New York Giants, the football team, of course, and the Mets. Those were my teams as a kid. And I remember I don't remember the 69 World Series. I do remember the 72 series with the A's and the Mets losing. And that's, I think, what really started that process, was collecting those guys, and, Tom Seaver. And then the Giants didn't have too many guys in the 70s, but, Norm Snead and those guys, and I have Fran Tarkenton, and I would collect those guys, and that's what really got me started. And that's what we did as kids. We traded. So after leaving the 70s, when the New York Giants were horrible, I traded away the Terry Bradshaws and the Roger Staubachs to get Joe Fasarcheks and Jerry Goldsteins. So that wasn't a very good economic plan, because those cards, of course, but those are the guys I collected, so I wound up with no Bradshaws and Staubachs and plenty of guys that were worth nothing, so we collected the team.
Awesome. Wow, that's a great story. And you've been collecting for so long, starting as a 6-year-old with the wax packs and all that, and growing your collection up to this day. Is there a specific piece in your collection that for others would not have any much value for them, but for you, you have a strong connection to this piece, has so much sentimentality for you?
Well, I have an original 1972 Sunoco stamp book, and you used to go to Sunoco, and they gave away. If you got a tank of gas, they would give you either a glass, and then they ran a promotion where they give you like a booklet of stamps, and you put it in your stamp book. I still have my original book. It is beat up. All the stamps are posted in it, but it's still my original book from when I was a kid. So value-wise, maybe $10, but sentimentally, I remember going with my grandfather and my dad to the gas station and getting those stamps, collecting those stamps,
Wow. I mean, what does that piece mean for you?
It's like everything else in the hobby, what it should be, especially for guys collecting cards when they were, it's nostalgia. It's what, we have people walking by our tables at the show, or whether they're in our showroom or the auction house at the store, where they just say something, see something, they go, wow, I remember that as a kid, and it's just a memory lane thing, and I believe that's what that book means to me too. I remember sitting in the back of a Valiant, 1972 Valiant, with no air conditioning in the summer, and Buddy Harrelson and Pete Rose get into a fight, and I'm hearing it all on the radio, and it brings back all of that,
So with that book that you have, with that beat up book that you have, like you mentioned, it just transports you to that time when you were your grandfather.
Yeah,
is collecting
absolutely.
those.
It brings back all those memories. And, my dad's gone, my grandfather's gone, it brings me back to all of that,
Awesome.
So good stuff.
Good stuff. Definitely good stuff. And with your collection now, with that being a specific piece that you have so much sentimentality to it, how about a prize or a favorite collection piece or a prize collection piece that you have right now? Do you have one?
That is a tough question for me. So I thought about that. And what I would say is there is a photo of Lawrence Taylor and Phil Simms on the field in Chicago that's autographed by both. And it's a favorite piece of mine because they were both at the end of their careers. It was the Dan Reeves era. I want to say like 1993, maybe. And it was the first game of the year. Dan Reeves was the head coach. And basically, Lawrence Taylor and Phil Simms won that game on Soldier Field. They dominated both sides, and they won a tough game. And they're both, at the end of the game, Simms comes off the field, and he's got a ball in his hand, and LT's hugging him. And they're in their whites, their travel whites, and they're all grassed up and dirty like should be. The old time, with real fields,
Yeah.
and it was autographed by both. And I think that's probably one of my most special pieces that way. I really love that photo.
What's the story behind acquiring it? Was it challenging, or what did it take?
That one wasn't too tough. That one wasn't too tough. I remember seeing it and somebody was selling it and saying to myself, I got to have that, And again, sometimes people buy stuff at our auctions and such, and other people say, well, boy, that guy really overpaid for that or something. It's not about that. Maybe that guy just really wanted it. And that's not overpaying if you're getting something that you really want, Sometimes with the hobby, people put too much emphasis on a value as an investment. Okay. And I think it's really, collecting should be about what you like, not what and sometimes this stuff does go up in value, even though you don't expect it to, or you're not looking for that to happen. It does do that.
Yeah, just like your book that you have. For others, it's just $10, but for you, you'll pay more than $10 to just have that back. If you ever sold that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Cool. Speaking of value, what would you say is the most valuable that you have, or the rarest item that you have in your collection?
Right now, I would say it's a Babe Ruth cut signature. It has the initials GH Ruth, so George Herman Ruth. I think that's probably one of the most rarest that we have there at the store right now. We have some other really cool pieces as well that are rare too. Like we have an original locker out of Shea Stadium when they took down Shea Stadium. And it was actually the Migrays and the MLBs actually have it as Nolan Ryan's locker from the '69 Mets. So that's pretty cool piece that we have as well. But I think as far as value wise, I would say probably the Ruth autograph right now.
What's the going rate for that Ruth autograph?
It depends, ours is really clean signature. They did a cut signature and then they slabbed it on a Hall of Fame plaque and Beckett certified it or, authenticated it. I would say probably in the area of $12,000. SMR, might have it a little higher, or a price guy might have it a little higher, but I think the fair market values are right around 12,000.
Wow. That's a hefty signature.
Yeah, it's a really, I get a lot of Babe Ruth signatures in the store to be authenticated and sold to me. Not many of them are real. So that one is a real one. Yeah. So you have that problem as well,
And you mentioned it's a clean signature too.
Very clean. It really pops. It really pops off the page,
I can't wait to see that one once you send the pictures.
Yes, it's a cool piece.
How about a piece in your collection? You mentioned a while ago that the picture that was signed by the two players wasn't hard to get. But how about a piece that just played hard to get for you? You wanted this piece, but You just
Well,
went into.
I remember as a kid, a Walter Payton rookie card, 1976.
Mhm.
And a couple of my friends had one, and I was just buying pack after pack, and I could not pull the Walter Payton rookie card.
Mhm.
And I want to say it took me, till I was even a little older one day, and I went to a show and I saw a nice one. And they have condition problems; they're not centered all right. And I had bought a really nice one, but that was one I remember as a kid going nuts over. That I really wanted that card, and everybody in the neighborhood had one but me.
Mhm.
So I remember that.
And how many years did it take for you to get that one from the time you
I
wanted
want to
it
say so 76 was his rookie. That would put me at 10 years old. I want to say till I was about 15 years old to get one. I mean, just no matter what I did, I could not get a Walter Payton rookie card. I mean, open boxes of the packs, and I just couldn't pull one sometimes, and even though there's supposed to be a certain amount of cards in there, I would get a box that just didn't have one. It was just really just like my nemesis for a long while.
Once you got that piece, I mean, how was it? What did you feel during that time?
Oh, and it wasn't even that. It was an okay one. It wasn't a perfect one anyway. You probably wouldn't even grade it today. Maybe it'd be a 6. I was just, oh my gosh, I finally got this card. I think I picked it up in a show in Middlesex, New Jersey, somewhere. But I finally got it, and I was just, I had it in my hand. I just kept staring at it like, I can't believe I finally own one. And by that time, it had cost me so much more money because of the popularity of the card had gone up, to get it. But I finally did get one.
And you still have that piece today?
I don't believe I still have that one original one. So one of the things as an owner and a collector is I still have all my binders behind the counter. And we have probably one of the largest selections of vintage cards, non-sport and sport, in the state. So we have all our stuff that's categorized and logged away. I believe somewhere along the line, like if you came in our store and you couldn't find a certain card in 1976, and we would go to then, and we'd search all our avenues first. And as a last resort, then we would go to my binders and pull it out. And I would put a list, I have a list and would want to refill it again. So say you needed card 75, we would take it out of my binders, sell you card 75, and it would go on a list to replace in my binders again. So somewhere along the line, I do have a Walter Payton again, but I think that one's moved out. I actually have a better one now. So
that's good. That's good. You got a better one.
Yeah. So although it's my personal collection, it's still a business.
Yes.
So the customer was really looking for something, I would then sell them mine and then replace it out of mine.
Now that you mentioned that the collection that you have, though kept properly, is also still an extension of the inventory of the business. What would you say, or what would you say are your tips in maintaining a collection, since your collection is also being part of the inventory?
Well, one of the things about collecting, I remember as a collector, and I know people feel the same way, is you want to be able to look at what you have. But in the same token, you want to be able to protect what you have, not to damage it as you look at it. So I always recommend to kids that if it's of great value, you might want to put it in something heavier, like a top loader or a properly fitted magnetic, so that you can handle it without damaging it. And then, of course, I like to have a poly sleeve in the card in a poly sleeve first, and it prevents it from moving around. The lesser cards and younger kids, I always recommend paging them, so they can go just turn pages, 9 pocket pages, and just keep looking at their cards. I think that's the best way. You really do have to protect your cards. And this stuff is so very expensive today, too, that you really don't want to be messing it up. And you never know. Sometimes guys that aren't big coming out as rookies, as we can constantly see, go up in value 2 or 3 years later because they become the hot ticket now. So you got to be careful of that happening.
With still on maintaining a collection, how do you have items that display at your house when you just display a collection that you have?
I only have a couple of them. One of them is that Lawrence Taylor Phil Simms piece. I have it. That's actually one I have at the house now. Is I think it was Lawrence Taylor's retirement or Phil Simms' retirement, where Phil Simms threw football, his last touchdown pass to Lawrence Taylor at Giant Stadium at halftime, and then he retired his jersey. I have another piece that I had, which was from when I was a kid. It's a plaque. It's like a wood plaque with Lawrence Taylor's rookie year and he's on it. And I actually showed it to Lawrence Taylor when he was at my store last year. And I said, this was in my room when I was a kid. And he looked at the signatures, totally different than the way Lawrence signs now. He signs a beautiful signature now. And he looked at it and he said, boy, that was a horrible signature back then. And he says, he said to me, he goes, how old is this? I said, well, it's, from 1982, maybe 81, when you were your rookie season. He goes, man, we got old. That's all he said to me. But
that's a good piece to discuss with the person who signed the piece.
I brought it from behind my man cave. I brought it to work just to show him. Anybody asked him to autograph, and he probably would have autographed it because he was a heck of a nice guy. Well, I just wanted to show him this, and he really enjoyed looking at it. He was like, wow, that's a great piece,
Yeah. Did you know he's coming? That's why you got it from your man cave?
Yes. We had scheduled O.J. Anderson to come. We do autograph signings all the time at the store. And
awesome.
We had gotten O.J. Anderson. I remember 2 weeks before that, O.J. calls me up on the phone. And he says to me, do you want the greatest football player ever to play the game? I said, LT? He goes, yeah, I can bring him to your store. And then, we made an agreement, and LT came to our store. That's basically how it all came about. We weren't looking to bring Lawrence in. It just happened that way that OJ called us.
Wow. That's cool. Great. That's a cool story. You mentioned a while ago how you have items displayed in your man cave. How do you maintain the balance between trying to preserve the item and still wanting to display? I mean, I understand there are UV items now, but still it doesn't protect it 100%. And over time, it still gets faded. I mean, you want to show it and to tell people the memories and what's the story behind it, but you don't want it degrading in value or degrading the beauty of it. I mean, how do you find the balance in that?
Well, if it's something that's really valuable and you want to protect it against UV, and UV can be in the room too, with, travel through a window. It doesn't necessarily have to be direct sunlight to get UV to damage autographs. It's to use, when it comes to autographs, use, archival glass, UV protected. Same thing with your baseballs and things like that. Make sure your cubes are UV protected. And that helps. And direct sunlight's a killer. You don't want it by direct sunlight, but that's what I would recommend. It's not cheap, but there you can get a basic framed and matted piece for $30 to $40 on an archival glass and stuff like that. That would be my best recommendation because you don't want it to fade out.
Definitely. You want it to maintain the condition how you got it, and then so you can pass it on.
And it can be, and Wilson, it can be expensive. Like if you're looking at jerseys, you really gotta decide, do I want to put an $800 frame on this jersey? It's only worth $150, So you've got to make that judgment call too, when it comes to that,
Yeah, in case it fades, I know I can buy another one.
It's the one, but if it's a Mantle jersey or a Jeter jersey, by all, you really want to protect it. That's a serious value there.
Yeah, that's true. With your collection now, how would you describe the size of your collection? Did you have a man cave? You have the inventory of the shop?
My stuff at home has gotten really small. It's just that I have a few pieces like the LT plaque, and it's the picture of them together. And there's actually a Phil Simms pennant behind my bar. But that's basically it. There's only a few pieces still at home. There's a couple pieces I've hanging in the garage that were from my bedroom when I was a kid. There's a Leonard Skinner poster and stuff that's like that, the posters alone are like 40 years old, but that's basically it. Everything else has gone basically to the store. My collection is the store now. That's how I look at it. And you come to the store too, or you can look online at the photos of there's a photo gallery. We display it like it's my collection. We take a lot of people come in the store and say, boy, I've been to this guy's shop and it's a mess and it's unorganized. And they operate the way they operate, and that's fine. We like to operate like a museum. So our stuff, when you come in the store and you look all around, it's all displayed nicely. We have some really cool, rare pieces in the store, and we have everything from, trains to vinyls to matchboxes. So we have a wide variety of stuff. And that's how we like to do. We like to set it up so it's really cool. It looks really cool walking around.
That's for people to really see it clearly and understand that this piece is here, and for you to see and enjoy. And if you like it, you can take it home.
Like we have all these lead salt. Yeah, exactly. We like that part of it. We have all these lead soldiers set up in a battle arrangement and things like that. So we have all sorts of toys and things laid out. That's pretty cool.
Awesome. And you mentioned a while ago how how you still maintain the piece that don't know when a card that you got on his rookie year and then sometimes won't do well and then sometimes it's going to be a hot ticket across a few years after. We understand that values fluctuate every now and then, but aside from value, what would you say was something you wish you knew when you were starting to collect pieces that would be great to know now?
The value of Mickey Mantle cards. Because you used to be able to go to a show in like 1980. And I remember you could have bought a 52 tops maybe for $500 Mantle, and back in 1980 and such, where now you see the values of the 52 tops Mantles, his first tops card, like, astronomical.
Yeah.
And I think I wish I would have known then, maybe being a Mets fan and not seeing Mickey play, that played a part in it, but they were laid out everywhere for $50, $100. And then of course the 52s you get for like $500. And I wish I would have known now, what they, back then, I wish I would have known back then what they are now,
Back then, 500 is quite a large sum of money.
Yeah. And it was crazy. Well, that's the way you looked at it too. You're like, wow, man, 52 Mantles, $500. And now you look at it like, oh, man, I wish I would have jumped all over that.
That's true. Knowing what you know now, 500 is just peanuts.
Yeah. And again, we all collect it, and a lot of people felt that all this stuff would go up in value someday.
Yeah.
But it took 30 years basically for vintage prices to start to climb in the COVID. Is when that all happened. And grading, I believe, which is now in its 23rd or 5th year now, it's getting old now, actually pulled up the stuff from the bottom because the prices had gotten so high in the grading, they had to lift the lower, the prices of the raw cards up. And I think that's what pulled up the bottom a little bit as well.
All right. That makes sense. That definitely makes sense. And now that we're discussing about things that you wish you knew then, how about passing on knowledge to beginner collectors today? What would you say are top 2 learnings that you would pass on to beginner collectors?
Well, it's a really good question. And we face this a lot with little kids in the store. Like kids will come in with their dads and the dad will be like, hey, you got to buy this. And the kid's like, well, I really want to buy Pokemon cards. And then we'll try to talk the dad into like, hey, if he doesn't like what he's collecting, he's not going to collect. So maybe buy the Pokemon cards and then buy a couple of packs and then pull out the packs and say, okay, there's Pete Alonso. Look at that. He's right there on TV. Pete Alonso, or go to ESPN and say, there's a home run by Pete Alonso. So they can, you get so they get interested more in that as they go. And that seems to work pretty well. The number one thing is if you're being told what to collect as a kid, it's like anything else. You're being told to eat your green beans. You're not going to want to eat your green beans. So
eat your broccoli.
You got to do what you like, and if they're doing what they like, and that's really what collecting's about is the enjoyment and the love of it, then they're going to continue to collect. And the other side of it is I always shy away from the newer stuff. I shy away from the newer stuff. I'm a vintage guy. And I like the stuff that's engraved in stone already. So I like, so you take a look at going back to 1985 in baseball, all the guys that have gone up in price since then, you can count them on 2 hands. It's Ken Griffey Jr. in 89, 93 to Jeter, maybe Pujols and Ichiro in 2001. Then you go to like 2011 with Trout. So that the rise of those guys, it's few and far between sometimes. Now, a lot of it's gone up because the market has gone up overall. So the whole market is lifted up. But the guys that have skyrocketed and become tremendous investments, you hear stories all the time. Even the McGuire's, when McGuire's rookie was out, they were like $250 a piece. Now, you see so many of them and it's hard to get $20 for a McGuire rookie, even though it's probably warranted, it's just, so I would say collect in stuff that's in stone. You see it all the time too with players. They get hurt, their promising career doesn't end up that way. And you put all this investment into that. And unfortunately, it doesn't always work out. So I like to go for more of a, almost like collecting stocks. You go companies you can keep kind of thing. Where you shy away from the risky investments. Yeah,
wise words, definitely wise words. With your experience in collecting, you've been collecting for so long, since you were 6 years old, as you mentioned. If that moment where you got your first wax pack never happened, what would you think would your hobby be instead if you never started collecting?
Probably the matchboxes because of how I was into the matchboxes because of my dad, and I liked collecting them. And a funny story about that was years later, I wasn't collecting them again. And I had bought a huge collection of stuff from the storage locker. So, and I found a Matchbox car that I had when I was a kid in there. And it was an English hovercraft or something that, you know, when you drive it on land and goes in the water, that kind of thing. Yeah. And it was only like from 1977 or 78, but I said, oh, I remember having this as a kid. And then I started chasing as I was collecting other Matchbox cars that I had when I was a kid that I could remember, fire trucks, things like that. And so I think that part of it probably would have took off a little more, you know, the Matchboxes, but I cannot see myself without collecting where I came from, my friends and Little League and Pop Warner football, and my family, you know, the diehard Giant fans that were my family, you know, not collecting those guys, not loving those guys, you know.
Yeah, that would definitely be a totally different story from there.
Yeah, I can't see that happening for me.
Understandable. And with your collection today, since you have a man cave, you go at home and see it every day. When you see your collection that you see displayed in your man cave, what do you feel?
Well, you know, the things that I have a few pieces, but I also collect shot glasses at home. So my home collection kind of, and the shot glasses are all collected from places that I go to. So if I went to see Branson, Missouri, or if I go to the Grand Ole Opry, or you know, the Football Hall of Fame, I would buy a shot glass from that, and that's again, you know, you look at the shot glass and you remember being there. You know, you remember that, you know, from where you were and such. You know, and that's basically like we just traveled to Massachusetts and we did some fishing up there, and my daughter's looking at schools. And she wanted to see UMass, and I didn't realize the Kennedy Library was on the grounds of UMass, and I'd never been to a presidential library, so I went there, and JFK had such a great history and tragedy and all in one, and I got a shot glass from the Kennedy Library, and I'll remember going to the Kennedy Library with my kids and my wife, you know, and seeing that, and just stuff like that as well, you know.
Awesome, yeah, As we mentioned, just transport. Is the book also in your man cave? The book that you've collected with your grandfather and your dad?
No, that one is at work, believe it or not. It's in the back room at work. There's a sort room we have where when the collections come in, we sort. And it's actually almost like a mail room because we run auctions. We have a live auction first Wednesday a month. We have a Facebook Live third Wednesday a month. And then we always have silent auction running in the store. So we're always building lots to put on the auction. We do a lot of consignment. So back there's also just some items that are off on the shelves, and that's where that book is. So it's not for sale. You know, it's just on the back shelf back there. You know,
it's for display and for you to see every day when you go to work.
I just run into it every once in a while as I'm moving stuff around because it's a mess back there.
Yeah,
you know, as neat and organized our store is, that room can get very messy.
So that book is your source of inspiration when you go to the back.
Yes, I see it all the time and think about it. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. And with your business, I mean, what's the story behind RC Collectibles? How did it get the name? Why did you start the business?
Well, I owned a restaurant and catering company, Russo's Continental Cuisine. I'm actually a chef by trade.
Oh, wow.
And I owned it for 30 years. And I was fortunate when my kids were getting a little older and my daughter was playing softball and I was coaching softball and all that good stuff. I was looking at that time to retire from the restaurant business. It's a young man's business. And excuse me. I wanted to get ready to move on to the next phase of my life. And I got fortunate. Somebody wanted my property and I was able to sell it. And then I still had the catering business, but I was actually, when I incorporated, I used the RC part to move it over to RC Collectibles. So it was Russo's Continental was on our logo, RC. I moved that over to RC Collectibles. And again, I had done that probably 15 years before time because I had incorporated a long time ago. And I was actually doing shows at my banquet hall. I was doing auctions so what happened was I things had evolved along the way. Like I would go to auctions and I became friends with the auctioneers, and then I started auctioning lots with them as a consignor. And then another man came up to me one time and said they were looking for a place for their Super Bowl Sunday sports card show. And I said, great. And I started running the Super Bowl Sunday show at Russo's Continental Cuisine. And then another man came in who's a good friend of mine now. It's almost 20 years, who ran an auction, needed a location. So we started doing a live auction there. And then when we sold the building, and moved over to our location, everything was an easy transition. We just maintained the auctions, we maintained the shows, everything. But I was actually doing that a while back while I was still in the restaurant business as well.
So it was essentially a transition waiting to happen, right?
I think so. You know, I think I was already planning that this is what I wanted to do with the next phase of my life as far as my work phase, you know. And again, I was hoping that this was going to be enough then to carry me to my retirement, you know, and I was confident no matter what we did and the business plan that we had, we were going to be successful because of the way we operate our business. I was confident, you know, and it took me, I found a great landlord. It was funny because I asked him when I went to get he has a beautiful building that we're in now. And I said to him, you know, would you consider selling the building? And he looked at me, he's a great man. So I'm like a big brother. He said, what do you want to do that for? You just got rid of the building down there. I looked at him and said, yeah, you're right. You know, just give me an option to buy or something. And then he did, you know, but yeah, so that was the transition was easy. I was so looking forward to, I had first thought about taking a year off in between the restaurant business and opening the collectibles. And before I knew it, I was operating the collectibles before I had even got out of the restaurant business because I'm just a workaholic. That's just the way things are. And it worked out that way.
What was the push to have the collectibles already, since you were still operating the restaurant and then you started somehow going into the collectible portion already altogether? What was the push to start that, even though you're still operating the restaurant?
I think finding a location that was perfect and the perfect landlord that was going to give the lease that we needed to be successful. And I did. And again, I had thought that process might take a lot longer. I was just really blessed that all of those things took place at that time. And my vision was able to take place. I did not want to go in a strip mall. I wanted something a little bit more special. And my landlord had the perfect approach. You know, you often drive by empty buildings and you see for rent for years on the same building. You say, and then some places will come in for 6 months and they're gone. And what probably happens a lot of times is the landlord might be, not always the case, but maybe too much of wanting to get the proper rent right away, where you need to a lot of times establish a business, you know, to build it, and the structure of a lease. You know, and I think the structure of our lease was conducive to our success. You know, I said, this is what I need to be successful. And the landlord says, if you're not successful, I'm not successful. So we need to be a team here. And I think that's how that worked out. And I think that's why he's such a great man and such a good businessman. Such
a great landlord. You don't find that nowadays.
Yeah, very blessed, very blessed. He's a really good businessman.
Wow. And with the shop that you have right now that it has its own place, it has its own, you can say that it owns the place already. For the record, what are the items and services that you offer to your clients?
Well, we do pretty much everything for them as far as we do not do grading or do grading submissions. And that's one of the biggest requests now. It is a process. And with we just have decided that because of our workload, that's something we don't want to get involved in right now. But we recommend places to go to, and we even instruct them how to do it online through the websites, and we'll tell them, hey, what's great about YouTube and all these things is if you get confused, and you will, to go to YouTube, and there's a guy there going to tell you how to do it the right way so you don't mess it up. But we try to be a full service. So even if you come in our store with autographs and you don't wish to sell them, but you want to get them authenticated for insurance purposes or your own knowledge or whatever, we offer services in that once a month where we take your autographs. We also have authenticators come in the store. JSA is there often every Super Bowl Sunday. JSA is there. CAS is there. PAS used to come out and take submissions at times. They don't do it as much anymore. But there's that. And then pretty much anything you need. So if you were to come in and say, hey, I really want to get a Dick Butkus autographed jersey for somebody for a birthday gift, we'll go track it down through the different people that we know as far as other vendors, see if they have it first. And then we'll try to shop one. We'll try to get one at a fair price. And we try to fill those needs for the customers. Everything from little requests such as a price guide to, we had a gentleman that came in that we're very fond of. Was looking for a Derek Jeter McFarlane a certain way, and we had to shopping around, and he only had a budget of $25. And believe it or not, they're tough to get the Jeters in the white striped uniforms with a bat. Last for $35, and we did our best to negotiate with somebody on eBay to get him this item. At the end of the day, we made $4 on the item, but we made the customer happy in their price range and got it done.
Wow. Oh, that's a good story. That now that you mentioned that about someone coming in and within a certain budget, that's quite prohibitive on many. Um,
Yes.
what would you say is one of the craziest or coolest requests that you have gotten in the business?
That's a tough question. I try to think about that. People often will come in with items they've gotten and said, this is a game used item
Mhm.
and with no documentation of provenance. And it's so difficult for me to tell you whether it is or not.
Mhm.
There are some situations where most recently we're working on somebody for a gentleman in Puerto Rico, I believe, whose dad had fought Ali. And he wants to know, his dad, I believe, has passed on. He wants to know, he has all the gloves and they're serial numbered from fights. Or excuse me, it wasn't Ali, it was Larry Holmes. And he wants
Okay.
me to contact Larry, who's been at our store many times,
Mhm.
to see if those were the gloves that he fought against his dad. And I told him we would send somebody to reach out to Mrs. Holmes and ask Larry if he can document that for this gentleman. So that's kind of a crazy request. That's not even a chargeable thing that we do. It's just something we try to help somebody along the way. So we're working on that for that gentleman to see if we can try to figure out which gloves his dad actually fought Larry Holmes with. But there are some unique ones. There are some unique ones we've come. Like somebody wanted to get a Little League uniform from the 1950s, and we were able to track down something similar. So because they were doing their man cave, and there's been a lot of strange ones, but usually the authentication of odd pieces and that kind of stuff, and the little requests sometimes, just be the oddest and most difficult sometimes as well.
What would you say is the oddest that you can clearly remember immediately at the top of your head?
I think the Little League uniform was probably the oddest. I really do. I didn't see that one coming. And we were able to get him something pretty close. Not the exact town or anything that he was looking for, but I think that was probably the oddest. To track down remaining Little League uniforms from the late 50s is not an easy thing to do. You see them all up there, but then they're all different. You got to try to get ones that match to his requirements of what his Little League uniform he remembered it.
Interesting.
So I think
that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And with you mentioned earlier how you also interact with players, how you bring players in your shop and have signings with them. Which player would you say was that you work with that was memorable, and why is he memorable?
Well, there's some that are, LT was special to me because I'm a huge Giant fan, and LT was, my era when I was a teenager into my adulthood was LT was there. So that was special. And OJ Anderson and those guys, I would say probably, one of the greatest experience. I had Jim Jeffcoat here not too long ago from the Cowboys. He played with the Bills too for a couple of seasons, and he has 2 Super Bowl rings. And what a sweetheart of a guy. We had such a wonderful time with him hanging out. I've had a lot of great experiences. Denny McClain was recently in, and the stories Denny was telling us were phenomenal. But I think some, we do actors and actresses too, and they can be tough. They some of those are wonderful, and we go out to dinner with them, and some of them are tough. I remember, Frank Howard. You played for the Brooklyn Dodgers originally. He came up and he actually played for Washington Senators with Ted Williams and them, and Hondo. And he's 6'7", and I remember I had him at a signing at my restaurant, and he walked in the day before, and he comes in the kitchen door, in the back kitchen door, and he has the duck coming through the kitchen door. He's 6'7". He says, "You Mario?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "How tall are you?" I said, "I'm 6 foot." He goes, "I could eat soup off your head." I remember that, and he was great. We went out to dinner, and he was trying to pay for the check. And as a guest of ours, we're like, "No, it's never going to happen, Hondo. We're not letting that happen." But what a great man. We've had a lot of instances like that we really enjoyed the company of the people we were with and had a lot of fun.
That's a great memory to have.
Yes.
Speaking of, you mentioned a while ago about how you have good memories with people and having some tricky memories and tricky situations with other players and actresses. Can you tell us a time when you had a difficult or tricky situation with a player or an actress? or someone that you work with?
Yeah, and again, it wasn't all. So I'll give you one. We had Bruno Sammartino at a signing in Wildwood, and Bruno was a great guy, and he was great with the fans. But there was traffic coming into Wildwood, so he was running late. There's only one way into Wildwood in the summer. If you're coming in on a Saturday, you expect the short traffic's going to be. He was very upset about how long it took him there because he had a flight that evening and he had to get back to his wife was ill at the time. And he was not in a good mood after he sat down. So he was venting to me as the customers were coming up, criticizing basically everything we were doing. Yeah, as soon as a customer walked up, he was phenomenal with the customers. He was just venting. That just gives you one example. And one thing, he did have a really good point. We had just started out at the time, and we only had one type of photo. We should have many different poses. And he just kept going on about that. And I guess it was one of our first signings we ever did. And he was right. We should have had more photos. But he was really hammering us about that. But at the end of the day, he shook our hands, hugged us, and we just chalked it up to that. The man was very stressed out, and his wife was ill, and that was the case with Bruno. There's times where actors and actresses and other people don't read their contracts. And, at the end of events, they'll sit there and they go, I'm not signing all these pieces or that kind of thing. And, and I'm not going to mention any names, but that happens. And where you say to them, and our contract is a couple paragraphs long. It's not pages and pages like closing documents of a mortgage. It's very simple. It just says we're going to do this for you and you're going to do this for us and sign at the bottom. And the person said, well, I didn't read that. And at the time it was a simpler contract, and it was only, I want to tell you, it was only a paragraph and a half long. And I said, well, that's, you agreed to it. You sent it back that you agreed to it. Well, I never read it. Well, I don't know what to tell you. This is the agreement. So there was that. And then there was other people that were supposed to sign a certain amount and didn't honor their obligation. So that happens. So as you're doing that and you're learning and you're working with celebrities and autograph guests, you realize the things you have to do to make sure that, and my saying is always the same, I'm going to do everything I promise you I'm going to do. I only want you to do everything you promise me. And it's that simple. And we're going to get along just fine. But you change the way you do things as you go along to ensure that it gets done properly. We've learned a long time ago that you never pay ahead of time. You want to pay at the end. That way you get your stuff done, so things like that. But most of them, we've been very blessed that most of the people we've ever had, even the ones that we've had little problems with, I mentioned the one that never read the contract, wind up coming back with us again and doing another signing with us again for everything. So it's always worked out. And one thing we do as a company is we're always honest with the people who sign for us. We do a ticket system. So, a lot of these people are, and the reason why they are, in their defense is they're taken advantage of by so many people who hire them. So many people are telling them they're going to do 250, 300 and try to push 400 in front of them. They're trying to get more for them. So they're taking advantage a lot. So if you're looking at it from the other side of the coin, you can see why they are the way they are, because their signature at this sometimes in their point in their life is all they have left, or that is where they make their money now, so it means a lot to them. So you can understand that. And we've learned the best thing that we can do is a ticket system. So now when we sell an autograph, we send up a ticket. They hold on to the ticket. So they sign the autograph and they know they have one ticket, one autograph. 100 tickets, they signed 100 autographs. There's no mystery to it. And that's why we do it that way, because we want to be totally transparent about how we do things with people. We're not looking to rip them off. And we've established quite a nice reputation. I remember we had Harry Carson was very select about doing the signings he does. And he called O.J. Anderson because we gave him people he could call that he would know as recommendations. And he called O.J. Anderson. He told us he had to tell O.J. to shut up after about 5 minutes. I get it. They're good. O.J. just went on and on about how good they are and their family operated, all that good stuff. So it's like anything else. We try to be professional as we can. We're not looking to try to sell somebody a beat up used car or be a flea market type operation. We are a professional operation, and that's the way we go about it.
Great stories. Although this next question that I'm about to ask have been showing already with our conversations within the past few questions, but with your experience in this business, with also having a restaurant and transitioning to a collectible store, what would you say are your top philosophies in business, Mario?
Well, the first thing you have to sell is yourself. right? So that's I teach that to my children as well. If you're not able to sell yourself, nobody's going to believe you and buy anything you're trying to sell them. So you have to have the reputation, the manner, and everything else to sell yourself. The other philosophy is in business is nobody goes broke making a profit. So whether it's $2 or $100, you're never going to go broke if you're making money. So, I remember a young kid came in the store one time and he bought a card off of me maybe a week before the one. Maybe it might have been a Ricky Henderson rookie. And they were $40 forever. And then the next week they popped up to $250. And he had bought the card at like $25 from me. And he said, I got this card off of you for $25 and now it's worth, $200 or whatever. I said, well, good for you. That's awesome. He goes, well, doesn't that make you feel horrible? And I said, no, I made a profit on the card. That's what I was looking to do. I can't foretell the future if that's going to happen. The best thing that could have happened is it went up. I feel good that it did because if it went down, I would feel horrible that you bought the card for $25 and now worth $15. So nobody goes broke making a profit. That's the philosophy in business. And again, you try to sell something to everyone. It may not be the huge sale, but if a guy comes in and you can't, make a sale on the cards that you want or an agreement, and maybe he's looking for supplies and you sold some supplies, you made a couple of dollars. So you just try to be customer service oriented. And we try to give the best deals we can all around, to people. We always try to negotiate prices with people to give them about something that makes them comfortable,
Awesome. Those are definitely great ones. And sell yourself and you never go broke making a profit.
No, those are two of my biggest philosophies. I say it all the time. My kids will probably tell you they're sick of hearing them.
Awesome. And aside from your philosophies, focusing on the collectible business, what would you say are the top 3 challenges that you face in the collectible business?
For me personally, technology is tough for me. As you can see, just finding a little button to go to the screen was an issue. But technology is really tough for me. And I'm a creature of habit too. I still type with one finger. I'm pretty fast with that one finger, but so technology is tough for me. Other challenges might be trying to stay ahead of the trends or getting the product. So in today's market with the product that's out there and the allocations from your distributors, I could order 2 cases of Topps 2023 and they send me 2 boxes. So the challenge is to try to get the product in at an affordable price that the customer is going to still be able to say, you're still in the price range. If I'm buying at the same price they can buy, there's no way I can do that on a 10%, 20% markup on the stuff. So that's staying ahead of the trends is definitely something that has to be. The other thing that when we do our auctions is we try to have something for everyone. So there's autograph collectors, there's vintage collectors, there's crazy sports collectors. So you try to build and have in the store at all times on your list something for everyone. So that appeals to everybody coming in, and then it brings more people into the auctions. And that person who was there maybe for the lead soldiers also liked the non-sports card you had on the list and became a bidder on that as well. And that helps you in the long run to have more bidders on the items.
Awesome. Yeah. That's definitely something that comes with time, that everything's just evolving all through time. And
yeah, always, Wilson. Yeah, definitely.
Just a testament to how flexible you are, that even if you're having challenges in technology, you're still here, your business is still here, you're still able to adapt to that in your own way.
I try.
That you have live selling, that you go online or 2 times a week at least. So that's a good way of adapting to it. And speaking of adapting to it, what would you say are what makes you stand out from others? I mean, there are you're competing with people in the online media where everyone has access to it. I mean, what makes you unique and stand out among others, not just in the media, but also in your local area?
Well, we try to have, we do so many events. You have to promote yourself, right? So that, it's nice to be able to think that you can just open your doors every day and everybody's going to come. And that's a wonderful scenario if that happens for you. But if you don't promote yourself, so we do pack breaks, we do Pokemon pack breaks, we do Pokemon nights, trade nights, we do all of these, the signings and special signings. And we're always promoting those and having them lined up. So the promotion of it, We try to do customer appreciation days where the customer comes in and they're getting stuff for free, whether it be packs or magazines or, stuff like that, where we're doing giveaways. And then we do door prizes during that events as well. And usually what we do too is, if somebody comes in, we ask for a donation to St. Jude's or Wounded Warrior Project, or Tunnels to Towers is another one that we do. Those are the three main ones. And then sometimes we have some people that come in with their own charities, like some guest signers who are trying to raise money for their charities. And we'll ask for a $2 donation and such, and we'll give you a ticket towards door prize. And then we give away stuff. So you need a ticket to get the door prizes and things. And then whatever we take in at the end of the day, we match it. So if I took $100 in for St. Jude's, I send them $200. And that's how, so we try to do that promotion on the other. So we did the Cancer Society just last April as well, in a Shake the Can event, and we raised a couple $100 for them. So we're always trying to give back a little bit as well. But to always promote yourself is the biggest thing that we try to do. We always try to have something for everybody, and so many cool things going on in the store. So they'll be coming in for the pack breaks, and there'll be somebody sitting there signing autographs as well. And they're like, oh, wow. I didn't realize he was here today. So we're always trying to have events going on around the store.
Yeah. And sometimes people don't really know what they're into. Like, I'm into cars. And then suddenly you have like a side event here that's selling something else that's somehow related to the sport or to the hobby. And then, that seems interesting. So let me get a few of that.
Like just for instance, there was a Cowboy fan that walked in when Jim Jeffcoat was there, who didn't even realize Jim was going to be there that day, just was stopping by the store and said, was here to buy something else, and just started talking with Jim Jeffcoat. And next thing you know, can I get an autograph from him? And it wasn't somebody that was looking to come in and buy an autograph. It was just that situation that prompted that. And that's the kind of cool stuff we have going on at the store all the time. And then we've been really fortunate that we've had a lot of celebrities just stop in, Gary Vee was just in, I guess, Big Podcast was just in last week. He stops in often. Then we have a couple of kids that are in the minor league systems for different places that are local kids stop in to buy stuff all the time. And, I think last month or a month and a half ago, we had Doc Holliday, Eddie and the Cruisers. The story Eddie and the Cruisers was about a singer called Doc Holliday. His son came in, who's a famous musician, came in and he writes in Nashville. He just stopped in. He was just in the area with his two boys, and they were collecting. And we posted on the website. We'll take pictures with them and throw it up on our Facebook page or something that these guys stopped by the store today. It's really cool. Scotty Schwartz one day was in there. He's Flick from A Christmas Story, the one who got his tongue stuck to the pole. He grew up in Raritan close by, and he stopped in to say hello to me. And at the same time, famous artist James Fiorentino walked in the store, and there happened to be a new customer who walked in, and he's standing at the counter. He's looking over at the two of them, and he goes, is that James Fiorentino? I just got this piece from him at a place in Bernardsville at a gallery. I said, yeah, that's him. He goes, is that Scotty Schwartz from A Christmas Story? And this was a Monday. And he says, wow. He goes, you got quite a store here. I said, this happens every day. It doesn't, but the guy was like, really? It happens every day? Like, no, but it was just really cool that he walked in and he's staring at these two guys in the store, So that's a really cool time when that happens as well.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you promote it because you have to promote yourself. That you mentioned earlier.
I'm not shy about mentioning that people don't realize who's standing in the store. Hey, you realize that guy over there? I'm always shamelessly promoting it. So.
Everyone has to know, of course.
Everybody's got to know. We got to tell them all.
I remember earlier you mentioned how when you were in the restaurant business, you wanted to technically retire, and because it's a young man's business.
It is, yeah.
The way you transition into collectibles, with this business being very competitive and many businesses similar have been popping up here and there. I mean, in this specific business, I mean, what drives you? What makes you bring your A game every day?
I like to be something more than everybody else. We even back in the restaurant business, we were always trying to be the best of the best. It was a newspaper that came out with the best restaurants and we were always striving to be mentioned in the best of the best or one of the best. Also, receive wine awards and things like that. So I would say that to try to be, with the restaurant business, which is really cool, Wilson, is very rewarding as far as, you work in a business where people tell you did a great job all the time. And you hear complaints too, very, very rarely, but you hear that part of it. But So if you're a person, a lot of people work in jobs where they never hear they did a great job every day. In the restaurant business, you can have that happen 4 or 5 times a day. So that part of it, the rewarding part about it was really good. I just think that's what makes us strive is because I've always wanted to be more than just a card store, more than just a restaurant. We want it to be a beautiful banquet hall. We want it to be a special occasions place. And those are the things. And we want it to be known as, we wanted that shingle that was on the top level, and that's always been my drive, is to be something more, a little bit more professional than everybody else. And that's just my training and everything else. I think that comes out in that.
Awesome. Wow. That's definitely something you want to stand out at the end of the day, no matter what happens.
Yeah, no doubt.
Awesome.
I enjoy that.
With the business side and the collector side just melding together now that you have the shop, what would you say is your most defining moment as a businessman?
Boy, that's a tough question. My most defining moment, I've thought about this often. I would just have to say what helped us tremendously, we had put all the pieces in place and we were doing fine as far as the business. When COVID came along, the boom in the hobby, I think, was the most defining, because we went from just a store that had customers and so on to a store that got tremendously busy and still is. So there would be times where we're working on a Saturday and we get 3 people behind the counter all wearing company shirts and waiting on customers, and you look over and it's almost like a fish market going on or a deli stand. It's and that is a great feeling to see your store that busy, that hopping. Another great thing is that people who are looking to sell come to us constantly because of our reputation. So I think overall, you being lucky enough to catch the boom in the hobby at the right time. And that's why all these stores, when I first opened the business, almost going on 9 years ago now, the first opened the store, I should say, the business has been operating for 20 years. But when I first opened the store, 13 stores in New Jersey closed that year. The economy wasn't that good, was not solid. The small brick and mortars were locking up all over the place. And then we caught the boom around 2016, of course, when the economy changed and everything. And then COVID, of course, made a lot of people struggle. If I was in the restaurant business during COVID, I probably would have lost everything. Yeah. But who would have thought you shut down in the collectibles business and it goes crazy? Yeah. I mean, it goes, and then the revival of Pokemon gone crazy, So I remember before the COVID, I was buying stuff for Pokemon for like maybe a whole binder of cards for $30. And I didn't even care about buying it. And I was throwing it under a desk or something. And some of the cards that went through the roof 4 or 5 years later, when we broke all that stuff back out, we're like, wow. And people say, where'd you get it? I don't remember. It's 4 or 5 years ago. I probably saw 30 hollows in there, gave the guy $30, back. And who would have thought that those hollows you didn't know? That was just such a rare oddity that a hobby actually came back to life. And when it's crazy, I think that the COVID was the biggest thing, though. I think to become to that level, even if you had 100 people join in during COVID, which so many people did because they broke out their cards and everything and started collecting again, and you still have, I would say, at least 40% that stood in the hobby, even after the COVID. So it really increased the volume, because before that, you would have an auction and you have all dealers sitting there. So everybody who was in the hobby was selling, looking to sell. You very rarely just have collectors stop. Now you got a great mix of collectors and dealers, and it's really thriving still. It's doing well.
That's good to hear. That's very much good to hear. And with, I've asked you a similar question earlier, but we'll take it to a business context this time. If you never started this business, if you never started RC Collectibles, what would you think would you be doing, or what would you think would your business be instead?
That was a really good question. The only thing I could think of is I think I would still be involved in the restaurant business in one capacity or another. Now, like the year I sold the restaurant, we went out. I remember going out Easter Sunday, and it was my first Easter off in over 30 years. So I think I would still be involved in that in some kind of capacity. Would it be in a restaurant? No, I think the weekends and doing all of that would have been done, because my kids were growing up. I was enjoying coaching softball. I was on the board of directors of the softball league. I was enjoying all that part of life. I think maybe just, finding a supermarket and working a deli counter for a few days a week or in the gourmet section or something like that to bring in money, because I think I had reached a point in my life where I needed to have my family life now, that I was missing so much. So that I think that's where I would be, because I still love the cooking end of it. I don't love the hours. And I still say I can work circles around these kids. I really, at 57, I just don't bounce back the same way anymore, but I would, when I was in business, I was an animal. I would go 16 hours a day, every day of the week and make these high school kids look like, they'd be like, wow, you stand up all day long. I'm like, yeah, you sit down for 6-8 hours. What's your problem? I think that would be probably what I would still be doing, is working in the food industry.
So still in the food industry, but it's just a toned down version of the restaurant.
Yeah, some capacity or another. Even if I took a restaurant job somewhere as assistant chef or something, I wouldn't have to have the glory of having the whole titles. I would just be working, and I would be doing the day shift or something, lunch shift. So that would be where I would be at this point in my life.
Cool. Super. And right now, if someone comes to the shop and they approach you and they tell you that, Mario, I want to start a collection, what would you say would be my first step in starting a collection?
Always collect what you like. That's my biggest thing. I know I mentioned it before to you too, because if you're not collecting what you like, you're not going to stay collecting, right? Collect what what drives you to go to places, to, the flea market, searching for stuff, or antique stores. Collect the things that you really like. Now, I still like going to antique stores and flea markets and searching for things for the store.
Riffle through the cards.
Yeah, exactly. Or just the weird stuff too. Like you watch all these shows like American Pickers and stuff like that. I still go. Funny thing was, I went to Nashville a few years back and I picked something out of American Pickers store, and I sold it for a drop at my store. And it was only like an old Mark's toy car, but I think I picked it up for $6 and sold it for 12 at my store. So my claim to fame is I picked something from the Pickers, so. So that's what I would say. If you're starting out, collect what you like, what you enjoy. I think that being able to look at your collection is very important to you. A lot of times you see people say, well, I got it all locked up in my set. That's all great. That's investment. It's wonderful to have, but you really want to collect the things that you enjoy, that you can look at. I think that's important.
Awesome. Great tips. And to wrap this up, any final messages to the readers of your section and to the listeners of your section too?
Well, what I would say too is, if you're not sure about what our company specifically does, is go to our website, rccollectibles.com, and you can look at all there's a gallery page. So people might go through the gallery page and say, well, I didn't realize he's got a stoplight there. We have a stop. Or I didn't realize he had Leaping Lenny Pafo's last uniform before he retired, or Phil Rizzuto's uniform that he wore on the field when he was announced he was in the Hall of Fame, and things like that are the unique items you'll see at the store. I say recommend going to the gallery, because you'll see all pictures throughout the store and go, wow, he's got vintage bottles there. He's got vintage tobacco tins, that kind of stuff. That's on our end as far as the business goes. But again, collect what you like. Go out there. Trading is fun. You can still trade if you pick up something. I often say that I started, collecting more on a business level when I needed to deal to support the habit, using the old, the old drug saying, like, dealers used to do, drug addicts used to do it. I know it's funny, but we're all kind of addicts in a way. We're addicts with collectibles because we love it so much, we're addicted to it. So I say I started dealing to support the habit, and that's what got bigger. And then I wound up in the business in my garage. Well, first I started one bedroom, then a kid was born. I moved to the other bedroom, another kid was born. And I went up in the garage, and then sooner or later I needed to move out and get a store. It was at that level. Being organized in your collectibles, know what you're looking for, things like that. But that's how I would say to go about anything, and with us, just pay attention to our website. There's something new going on all the time. Things pop up where people are in town, just happen to be stopping by, and then we'll put that on the website and so on, and you come by and meet them and things like that.
Awesome. Very solid tips right there. Thank you very much, Mario, for being with us in this initiative.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, Wilson. I wish you all the luck in the world, and I look forward to helping you any way I can to going forward too, bud.